Rick and Morty comic bonus shorts for book 6. We start out with Rick's Salon. We see an alternate Rick go into a place with Rick and Morty living in it. He says he has an appointment. He's told to get in the chair and selfishly told not to tip the Morty. Morty says he's just looking for his hair to be cleaned up, but not too much. And that's what being a hairstylist is like anyways. He's speaking in very relatable dialogue. The Morty sees a phone fall out and runs away with it, staring at a picture of Jessica, and he looks down at a Rick in green liquid and says that someday he and him are gonna get out of here. Then his Rick reminds Morty that he collects Morty hair for his experiments and that he ordered him not to name his project, let alone call it Barbara. Then he accuses him of stealing from their donors and says he's crossed them too much. As Morty gets grabbed by a green thing and dragged into the solution as I wonder if he's not his original Morty and that's why he doesn't care. The story ends with Rick saying that this is the last time he goes to a Rick salon because his hair is singeing. Issue 46 was a lot more memorable than this. This is just a story I completely forgot about. Probably because I never learned what the Morty hair was being collected for, so it was all just pointless. Then we see a story called Extra Jerry, and Jerry says the newspaper is saying they're looking for movie extras and he wants a job. Rick asks if he wants to stand around all day getting browbeat, being filler for someone else's job as an insignificant character. He says to Morty that they're gonna go be useful and important, which is weird coming from someone willingly jobless who usually doesn't do heroic things and just does things for himself, like to earn money. Is he gonna go be useful and important this time? So Jerry goes to be a sci-fi extra, and is told to not actually drink the drink because it'll mess up the continuity of the scene, in case the actors have to do multiple takes of various lines of dialogue. Then the producer says that someone's needed to hand the actor the news spear, and asks Jerry if he wants a bigger part. He gets excited about it and calls Beth about it, but then he's shown from only a first-person view on TV, and he's heartbroken that only his hand was shown the shot. Morty says he has a lot of questions about how the alien society functions, and the story ends with some bad guy at a meeting wanting to find that hand. Then we see Morty Cast. Morty's listening to Radio Morty, who says that they just found out that their longtime co-host Handsy Morty has received accusations and has been suspended from the podcast. So they're gonna get 90s Zoo Crew Morty instead. Then he presses a button that generates the phrase "show me the money," and then another one. And Radio Morty isn't very happy about this, but politely thanks him for coming here. Suddenly we see the Morty that was listening to the podcast get attacked by an alien spider and dragged away instead of killed immediately. Then a mattress ad is played, starring Handsy Morty, who says he loves how soft it is. And Radio Morty apologizes because this was an old ad starring him. And then after he has annoying dialogue, he's punished for it because raunchy Radio Rick shows up through a portal, saying that he just bought a controlling stake in his pathetic network, which ends the story. Well, there's nothing for me to say about that either, other than repeating what the plot was. Not enough happened. It didn't lead to anything. Then the next story, Jerry's Right, starts out with Beth pointlessly practicing her speech against Jerry in front of a mirror where she plans on kicking out Jerry, even though she says she loves him because she thinks he's a bad father. Then Beth is told that these Hollywood types saw Jerry's hand in the sci-fi movie and want to make him rich. I never expected a bonus short to reference another one. Beth's not happy about this, and Jerry's told that Stream wants the rights to program exclusive content featuring his right hand because it's devoid of character and interest. He's told to move into a new condo and sign a new contract, where he'll be holding signs in 24 languages and 7 continents and opening doors. But that changed the status quo, so what's going to ruin things for him? He's told he'll live with other unremarkable people like him. Beth asks what about his family. Jerry is told that the algorithm doesn't understand or respect family bonds, and only knows subscriptions and user-generated data. And Beth says that Jerry is hers and hugs him, saying that he's coming home. Jerry's incredibly thankful that she said that and says her love is coming from an honest place. This made me assume the worst because he said honest. He says this will change things between them in the car, and Beth tells him bitterly that when this marriage ends, it will be on her terms. So he's not getting off the hook that easily. Well, that's at least more self-aware of how their marriage usually is in the romantic moments in the show. But why didn't she divorce him right there then? Then there is Morty Court. where we see Judge Morty presiding over a case of Rick versus Fancy Rick. Rick snarks in the court because Fancy said "we," and Judge Morty tells them both to either behave or Summer will cart them to prison. He probably has to deal with Ricks every day in the Citadel of Ricks, so I don't blame him for being less willing to stand them now. Morty testifies that Fancy started shaving his head without permission. Fancy has an objection when he's not a lawyer and expects his experiments to be seen as noble and pure when he's being honest about what he'd need hair for. Rick asks what he'd need Morty hair for, figures it out, and then is interrupted by Fancy throwing something at him to hurt him. Rick still tells Morty not to run off instead of focusing on himself. Fancy runs away, and then the Morty with cut hair finds the project. The project with a terrible name is made of Rick with a little Morty DNA. Ricks tend to be surprisingly attached to Mortys, even willing to sacrifice himself for one on the show. So it kinda makes sense that despite all their insults against Mortys, one would still make a project like this, if only out of scientific curiosity, to see what it'd be like. Wouldn't a Rick that's more like Morty just be a good Rick because Morty is his morality chain? So Rick would just think that would cramp his style and not see him as having unlimited potential. Fancy says that with their unlimited potential and this coat, he can seek something, but then he gets killed from behind by a falling object to the back coming out of a portal with Rick, who's not even hurt anymore somehow. I guess he used healing technology. He says that it was hard for him to find giant scissors and wishes there was a store for it. I guess he warped to a Rick garage to find them. Then we cut to Rick and Morty in the spaceship. It turns out that Rick saved the project, which looks like an octopus monster, and he's thrown into the ocean to be free, and Rick doesn't care if it'll be happy, supposedly, even though he cared enough to go save him. I was impressed that the story continued where a previous short, not immediately before it ended off. I really do have nothing to say about the story. Next up is Adventures in the Public Domain.